Yeah. Yeah. We have I mean, we have them until 10, so we're good. But we have them until 9, but I think so we're good for time wise. And we were keeping an eye on the clock. Yeah. If you'd like to put your stuff down, if you have like.
Who's PPP? I meant.
Let me ask Kyle.
Who's like, is that actually supposed to know?
Should we do a quick, Devin, should we do a quick mic check to make sure that everything's working?
Testing.
Can you help a little bit? Here, do you want to try again? Okay.
Testing.
All right, and Mr. Rogers, do you want to test, Mayor Rogers, do you want to test your microphone?
Testing.
All right. Let's make an announcement.
Hello guys, thank you all for coming. We're going to start in like 2.5 minutes, so just bear with us as we wrap up these last few things. Thank you.
So you'll be going first, you'll be going second. All right, and then so our first question will start with you.
You got to explain that. Amanda wanted. Whatever. Oh, maybe for
opening remarks, would you like you'll start and then
Oh, Brian, Megan said
and then you'll
something
go
great.
technical remarks. Meaning you'll the first question you'll answer first, then go on to the second. We'll go back and forth until everything. So it will go A B A B B A B A. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about berry. That popped up like the minute you walked away.
Something very great.
We have a live viewer.
And then we go to the second one. Would you like to kick start the questions?
It's like the.
Do you have any questions you're super cool to answer?
I don't think that I'm like super like I think like is there anyone that you really want to ask?
Oh no, you're just me. Just me. Oh my god, you're the fan. I'm a rock star.
You were just so good in our tower. Had to get a picture. I'll take it.
I'm sorry.
Before he sold out.
Okay. You want to start the microphone? Find the seats, please find the seats. We'll begin the debate shortly. I watch a lot of Western, I know what my stuff. Like 7, 8. Yeah, I can do 2, 3. I can do 4, 5. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
What? Oh.
Good evening.
Okay, wait, you know.
Shut up. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. We're gonna get started on this debate, so that everyone can just get seated and get ready. My name is Kyle Brightberg. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Paltz Oracle, and just wanted to thank you all for coming. We really had no idea what the turnout for this would be, so I'm really happy to see almost a full room. So thank you guys all for coming. I know it's a Friday evening, and for being engaged in our local political discourse here. Just before we get right into it, I want to, acknowledge this is kind of a little bit of an unusual election, especially for New Paltz. Obviously, we have a very contentious federal environment right now, but then beyond that, in New York State, this is going to be the last off-cycle, odd-numbered election year. And so what that means is that future elections outside of New York City will only take place on even-numbered years. This is the last local election that will be in an odd-numbered year. In addition to that, New Paltz doesn't typically have candidates that are running on opposing tickets, and so we have that as well. So that's one of the reasons why the Oracle wanted to step in and really make a debate out of this, and represent the community, both the university community and also the town community. So if you look at the walls right there and right there, there's just our freedom of at the very end, where you'll have the opportunity to talk to the candidates if you desire, more one-on-one. But no heckling. All of our conversation, including from myself, from our moderators, from our candidates, needs to be respectful and engaging. And yeah, so thank you all for coming. Thank you, both of you guys, for agreeing to come to our debate. And I also want to thank my team right here for helping us put this on. So thank you guys. Thank you all for coming. And now I'll let our moderators introduce themselves, and then eventually we'll get right to it. So thank you guys.
Hello, I am Patrick Kelly. I am the news director for WP Radio, as well as a staff editor for the New Paltz Oracle.
Hi, my name is Emily Clayton. I am the former managing editor and news editor of the Oracle. I'm currently doing a student internship in New York City. And I was asked back by my Oracle colleagues, and I'm happy to join you all tonight.
And we'd also like to recognize our timekeeper for the night, also from WP News, Claire McNamara. We're now going to begin with introductory remarks. The candidates perform a coin toss, and Mr. Mayor Rogers will be starting first.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is. Can you hear me? My name is Tim Rogers. Village of New Paltz Mayor. Thank you, Oracle, for organizing this, and thank you, community, for coming out, and thank you, Amanda, for serving as our town supervisor and continuing to be interested in serving our community. I'm a big proponent of contested races, so it makes all of us better candidates. Running for office is not for the faint of heart. I may have nominations from the Democrat and Working Families parties, as well as endorsements from UAC, County Executive Jen Metzger, County Comptroller March Gallagher, former New Paltz Police Chief Rob Lucchese, Congressman Pat Ryan, and the CSEA Labor Union, and over 40 letters of support from various individuals. But reading some of the recent letters to Hudson Valley One and social media posts is rough. Some say, I want unchecked power. and I'm taking bribes from developers, I realize drama helps with voter turnout, but I'm sorry to be disappointing. This is boring municipal work. Follow me around for the documentary, and you'll want to cancel your subscription. This is not Netflix. Unfortunately, you have two dull candidates standing here. Maybe Amanda is more exciting, but everyone who knows me knows I am a boring square. Unfortunately, you have, Amanda and I may disagree on how to get from points A to B, but we're both just administrators. And I believe we are both trying the best we can. I've had a front row seat to our local government since I started on the town planning board over 13 years ago in June 2012. I'm running for supervisor because I believe there are tasks that require immediate attention, and because we desperately need to fix this two-board mess to more effectively prepare our community for the next 50 to 100 years. Despite what my opponent's supporters say about my Netflix-like plans, I can assure you I am only interested in preparing New Paltz's future leaders so we may hand them a better government than we have now. I feel an incredible moral obligation to clean up this untenable mess. Every day, people call the village building department and the clerk's office looking for the town government. And I imagine they call the town government looking for the village. And here are my parents' town property tax bills. And here is mine. My parents' bills mixes the highway funds into one line, townwide plus the DB fund, which is the town highway outside the village. So it cannot be compared to my village bill's townwide share of highway budget. Why is everything a puzzle? Propping up this unnecessary separation is not good government. That's it.
So I'm Amanda Gotto. I'm your current town supervisor, and I love New Paltz. I didn't just happen to be born here or grow up here, but I deliberately chose to live here because it's a great place. A small college town in a rural setting with an amazing arts and music and lots of restaurants, and also all of the outdoor activities that we have. Who wouldn't want to live and love New Paltz? Now, yes, I've only been in office for about a year and a third, and I've learned a lot. It's been a big learning experience, but I have been running the town this whole time. 80 employees and all of the services that everyone in New Paltz enjoys, because if you live in New Paltz, you're a town resident, regardless of where your address is. And all the people here on campus are also town residents. So you have access to our police and our rescue squad and our pool and our parks and our community center and even our dog catcher. I mean, all of these services are provided for you guys and the taxes pay for them. And you know what? It's a tragedy that someone goes to the wrong building once in a while. Oh my God. Yeah, whether that's worth what it's gonna take to put these two governments together and what it's gonna cost for the lawyers and the consultants and the couple of years worth of chaos and turmoil, I don't know. I wanna see there be something more meaningful. I'm perfectly happy to look at possibilities for efficiencies and cost savings, meaningful ones, not ones that cause a lot more problems than they solve. So that's all I've got to say about that. I don't think that as a town supervisor that the next 50 years is what I should have my eyes set on. Yes, we need to do planning, but what's happening right here now today, our immediate needs, is what we need to pay attention to. So that's where I'm focused, is what will we be fixing to help our residents who are struggling with food and housing problems, and we need to take care of our infrastructure and that we need to make sure we're working in a balanced way that benefits everybody in town. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, so we're gonna begin with our first question. I know that Supervisor Gotto just addressed this in her opening statement, but for the audience, there are currently discussions of consolidating the town and village of New Paltz. Could you please explain the practical effects consolidation would have on the town, the village, and the SUNY New Paltz campus?
Okay, sure. So, on a day-to-day perspective, that won't make a lot of difference for the town because we're already handling so much of what's being done for the town. We've already merged. There used to be 2 police departments, there's only 1 now. We've merged the things that were easy and made a lot of sense to do. The things that are left are there and making their own, doing their own job. So yes, we have a highway department in both the town and the village, but we also have the same number of roads to plow and patch and maintain, the same number of buildings to take care of, the same number of parks and things like that. So the people who are doing these jobs know what they're doing them very well. We need every one of them and their equipment, because guess what, when it snows, everybody wants their road plowed right away, not waiting for hours and hours for the, 1 crew to go around and take care of it. We have in the town, outside of the village, there are 60 miles of roads to take care of. In the village, there's 11. So maybe one crew, those groups could get together and do all the roads at once. But in the village, there's a lot of pipes under the ground. The water and sewer system is extensive, and in the town, not so much. So there are some differences that still need to be taken care of. And I think that the mayor and the village board of trustees have been doing a very good job of taking care of the village's special needs and special requirements. You have within the village, which is about that big, in the town, it's about that big, the same number of people. Okay, so we need to take care of the special needs of the folks that live in a very dense environment and the special needs of the folks that live out in a more spread out area where we've got a lot of wetlands and farms and things like that.
Thank you,
Thank you, Supervisor Gotto. Mayor Rogers?
We get 1 hour to talk about this? There's so many directions you can take this conversation in. I think what's really curious about the fact that we have a town in the village is that we have numerous complicated funding formulas that we have to keep track of. So, how many people in this room know how we share cannabis sales tax that is generated at the dispensary down in the former Stewart's? How do we share mortgage recording tax? How do we share sales tax? There's just a variety of funding formulas that we have to keep track of. We have to have a highway fund for townwide, a highway fund for just outside the village, and then, as I pointed out earlier, you can't figure out which is which, if you have tax bills. My parents live outside the village, they have a different tax bill than I have, and you can't make sense of, how this works. I think what's really unique about our opportunity is that there's no question about it, this is real work. It requires, an integration, but this integration is achievable. This is not Nassau County. So in Nassau County, you have 3 towns and 64 villages. In Ulster County, you have 20 towns and 3 villages. So, as Amanda pointed out, the village of New Paltz is just a hole in a donut-shaped municipality. So the integration is already largely there. Is that a minute left or?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So the integration is already there. So what we have now is we're already sharing fire, we're already sharing police, we're already sharing justice court, we're already sharing an assessor. So we have such an opportunity to make that final integration where we can share building departments and we can actually do community-wide comprehensive planning, which we desperately need to do so that we can do exactly what Amanda was describing, in that we have density in the core, we want to preserve density in the core, and we want to have municipal services in the core, and then probably protect the open space and the different type of zoning that exists outside of the village.
Thank you. SUNY New Paltz is host to a diverse community which has unique relationships to this community. Can you just please describe how you view the broader relationship between campus and the town? Mayor Rogers, go first.
Help me with the question again.
Can you please describe how you view the broader relationship between campus and the town?
The relationship between the campus and the town, SUNY New Paltz is like, you know, a pillar of the reason that we are here. If the university was not in this community, you know, we would probably feel, you know, more like, you know, a small rural town that had a whole lot less going on. I think the fact that we have this fascinating, amazing mix of, you know, longtime residents, nationally ranked K through 12 school district, a state university, proximity to New York City, proximity to open space. Like, this is just such of a gem of a community. And the fact that we have a university campus here, you know, you can go for a walk and go into the Dorsey Museum, you can go watch a soccer game or, you know, a men's or women's basketball game. It's like a truly amazing opportunity to live within a college town, and I'm very proud, and I can't imagine you know, a New Paltz without the university.
Supervisor Gotto?
Okay, so this started, as you probably all know, started as Teachers College, was even called a normal school way back when. I mean, the school has been here for so long that it is a vital part of this town. And all of you are a vital part as well. The activism, the enthusiasm, the arts, the music, when you have speakers on campus, I mean, it's a wonderful asset for all of us here, and it's wonderful to have your youth and your vitality here as well. So it's very important for all of New Paltz, and you are supporting our economy as well. You're the largest employer in the town. You're the only residential four-year college in the county. So there's a lot of special things about New Paltz about SUNY that make New Paltz special too. And we thank you for being here, and we appreciate everything you bring to our community.
Thank you so much. Taxes in town have been going up, and there are broad concerns that this will continue. How do you plan to address concerns over taxes in town? Supervisor Gotto.
Well, that's a really good question. I have to tell you that last year was my first year at doing a municipal tax, which has to be a net zero balanced operating budget. So I worked very hard on what the expenses are that we have no control over. We have 80 employees, 70 of whom are in one of 3 unions, and those contracts declare that we have to give them certain raises, certain health care benefits, certain retirement. So we have some baked in costs that we have to work with, and then we have our operating expenses. So we worked very hard last year to challenge on those operating expenses and keep the tax bill low. This year, and actually I have to thank the mayor for helping me with this, I learned about the fund balances and how you do strategic planning and have money that you're working with to plan ahead for big expenses, like for instance, getting us out of the temporary trailers we've been in for 10 years into a real town hall. But there's also some money with COVID being an unusual set of circumstances as far as finances went, that we had some funds building up. And I was able to use some of that to put into this fund balance for the new town hall, but also use some to offset the taxes. So I'm really happy to say that this year, for the first time in 10 years, there will be a 0 tax increase for the town taxpayers. Yeah. Thank you. It took a lot of work, I have to say, and my staff, we worked on it really hard. Okay, thanks. So that's the kind of thing we realize. I've been hearing out in the community, I've been hearing the anguish that people are feeling about the economy right now. People don't feel certain about the jobs. Our businesses aren't certain about their materials and their supplies, when they'll get them, when it's gonna cost. So we need to be very concerned about this as well. It's one of the reasons I'm saying I want to cut the supervisor's salary as well. Okay.
I get to talk about budgeting. Okay, so the village budget that we've put out has been a flat tax rate for the last 9 years. And the thing with all budgeting is the exercise is to look at the revenue relative to the expenses. You have to budget for revenue correctly. Like, in addition to the challenges regarding, like, using too much or not using enough fund balance, which the town has done for the last couple of years. And we tried to discuss this with town officials during the budget task force. You know, my treasurer brought it up. I spoke about how it's, you know, customary to have a fund balance that's about 20 to 25% of your total expenses. You also have to correctly and more accurately budget for revenues. So when you have a giant fund balance and you're earning all sorts of interest, you know that your interest is going to be fairly significant as far as a source of revenue. And that's an additional thing that I have looked at when I've examined the town's budget, is that the revenue figures are just unnecessarily low, and that was another reason why the tax rate more recently has gone up. And I'm very grateful that the plan for this coming budget is to not increase taxes, but one of the reasons that I'm very interested in running is I think there are like real opportunities to take much harder, closer look at how you manage expenses and revenues.
Supervisor Gotto, your rebuttal.
Yeah, so I have to say that revenues, especially during a year when we had unusual interest rates, they're hard to predict. Our expenses are also hard to predict. We look at the history. I looked back at previous administrations to see what was happening there. What I did not want to do was be overly exuberant and say, oh, and then end up with problems. We have a fund balance that's required to manage our cash flow, and we have to maintain that. So, yeah, there's a lot more that can be done, but it has to be done with care.
Mayor Rogers, your rebuttal.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be exuberant when you're budgeting for revenues, but you have to be realistic, because if you're not realistic, then you're going to increase taxes too much.
If you have a crystal ball, that helps.
Thank you both. We're going to move on to our fourth question. There have been many complaints about traffic in the village and the town historically, from congestion to pedestrian safety. How do you see yourself addressing these complaints about traffic and these concerns as town supervisor?
Who are you asking?
I guess to talk about traffic and congestion. So I think what's fascinating about traffic and congestion in general is that there's no such thing as the right amount. Communities that do not have traffic and congestion would cut off their right arm for some traffic and congestion. And then the rest of us, like communities that have too much, endure an unpleasant amount of traffic and congestion. I think what's really interesting about New Paltz is that we've inherited this very unusual grid that's not a grid. The only way to go north and south is basically, or end east and west, is to go on the state highways. You don't really have a lot of opportunities to circumvent the traffic. And then we get to exacerbate that right now, because what we're doing in the village is spending $4 million replacing a 100-year-old water main on North and South Chestnut. And I get to deal with people complaining about having to wait an extra 90 seconds in traffic on a regular basis, and they accuse us of having contractors that are just milking the clock, which is curious because that's not the way these contracts are awarded. No one is getting paid by the hour. The contractor gets paid a flat amount, so they're motivated to finish the job. And I think what's really fascinating and interesting about doing work on a New York State highway in a community like ours is that, yes, you do have to dig a hole and then do the work and then fill it up that night, because it's a state highway. It has to be operational every single evening. This is not like a large city where you have all the other options to go on other streets. Like if you were in a different type of community, one that was more like a grid, then you 100% could just create a big trench, do all the work. The traffic problem would not be as horrible, and the work would get done more quickly, and the project would not be as arduous as the one that we're wrestling with.
Okay, Well, it's definitely a village issue, the traffic congestion, because of the number of people who are smushed into this small area. When you get out into town, we have 60 miles of roads, but they're not centralized. It's 299 going east and west, and 32 going north and south and it's not used just by us. It's not just used by New Paltz people. It's people going to other locations. It's big trucks. It's, if you need to get from the river over across towards the ridge, you've got to go on 299. And so that we've been, there's nothing that can be done about it, just like the thruway's part of our town as well. Nothing we can do about that. So the crosswalks are important. I know that the mayor is working on trying to get some of the speed limits lowered on their non-county, non-state roads, but there's nothing you can do about those other ones. And we do want to encourage people to use non-vehicle transportation, so walk, bike, whatever, and trying to get, like Henry W. Bike Path is one example of a way to try to get people to have a safe way to get around in the village. Out in the town, it's a lot different, but out in the town, there's no stoplights, there's hardly any stop signs. You have to pay attention to the traffic there too. So it's a fact of life where we live, yeah.
Mayor Ray Rogers, your rebuttal for that?
I'm good with talking about traffic.
Okay. We are going to press a follow-up question of, in case of a consolidation, how being the town supervisor in that situation, supervising all of that traffic and those concerns, your approach to mitigating all of those issues.
I thought we were done talking about traffic.
Is that what
That would be good to you, Supervisor Gotto.
me? Okay. Okay, well, like I said, I don't foresee that the day-to-day operations for the supervisor will change that much because we have the bulk of the services and the bulk of the staff already. So adding a few more streets or adding another few employees is not going to make a big difference. We have department heads who do their jobs very well. I'm in almost daily communication with them. So that when you're talking about mixing in the 3 unions and another union, then you run into some issues with labor that are gonna be thorny, believe me. And you will have an expanded budget, certainly, so it will have more lines of figures on it. But regardless of what you see on the tax bill, I can guarantee you that if you go onto the website of the town and look under budget and you see the cover sheet, you will see each of those functions broken out. You will see A, you will see B, you will see. So A is townwide, B is town outside the village, because the village has its own set of things they have to pay for. DA is the highway department doing townwide, and DB is the things they do within the town, with the town outside the village only. You'll see that. You'll see the library. You'll see all those different funds on that page. So please do go take a look and see what you can.
Yeah, I would agree that there's no fat on this bone in terms of staff in the village, staff in the town. We have well-run departments. There's no opportunity to pursue efficiencies by eliminating staff. So if anything, I would love to wave a magic wand and have more staff to offer more programming and more services. So I think that the uniqueness of a consolidation of New Paltz is actually more on the administrative and bureaucratic side of things. And I disagree with the supervisor in that by consolidating, you would actually get rid of the B fund and the DB fund. The budget would actually be easier to navigate and less of an unintuitive puzzle. It would be more clear in terms of where your various lines are.
Supervisor Gotto, your rebuttal.
Okay, well, I've been working with that budget. I've just finished the second one now. It's very clear where all the lines are and where the money goes, and that'll still be the case, whether you call it A, B, D, whatever. The money's still gonna have to go to these certain functions and these certain bills that have to be paid. And we're talking everything from, employees, retirement and all that sort of stuff, to also how much does the printer cost and how much does it cost to, buy the tires for the trucks. those things are all line items. It's 164 pages, and there it is. It just takes work. That's all it is.
Mayor
I
Ryan.
get to talk more about budgeting. I like talking about this. So, I was talking earlier about, like, does anyone know how cannabis sales tax is shared? Does anyone know how regular sales tax is shared, right? So cannabis sales tax is shared 50-50. Half goes to the town outside the village and half goes to the village. Sales tax in Ulster County is shared based on assessed value. So because we have this property, which is tax exempt, that means that the sales tax that we receive as a community, 75% of it goes to the town outside the village and 25% of it goes to the village. You know, one of the things that I've worked on really hard over the last several years is we actually increased how much New Paltz receives. We used to only receive, as all 23 towns in the village, only 3% of the local share. Now we get 4%. So that's one of the reasons why we then pivoted, and now we do it exactly the way Ellenville and Saugerties do, those villages. So now we get the 25% of the share that's coming into New Paltz generally, as opposed to previously 100% went into the town's aid fund.
Thank you.
Can I say something about that too? Okay,
Yeah.
because first of all, the county does the distribution. The county has the algorithms, the methods for doing it. So we don't have to administer it ourselves, it's done for us. And yes, in fact, most of sales tax, about half of it goes to the county, and another 11-12% goes to Kingston, and then what's left is distributed among the 20 communities in the county based on assessed values. Except that a couple of years ago, the village decided rather than contributing their part to the A fund, they took it, they kept everyone's taxes down in all of New Paltz, they took it just to the village. And so then we had to raise taxes to make up that loss. And the town then was forced to take theirs out and put it in the B fund. So you can play shell games with the money and move it around different ways, but this is the outcome. No, I'm sorry, but it's true. Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next question. Housing in New Paltz has been an issue among residents and students alike. What are your philosophies on housing? And that was going to go to Mayor Rogers first.
So we're a pro-housing community in the village, and when you're a pro-housing community, you're then eligible to potentially receive grant awards from New York State. New York State has created goals for local communities, and you know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, we have to address this international, regional, and local housing crisis. You know, we have to add more units. And I think what's interesting about our community too is that it's not like we're just gonna grow in some like irresponsible way. We actually have pretty hard boundaries. You know, we have a sewer plant. So the sewer plant has a 1.5 million gallons per day permitted cap by the DEC. So even if we make an upgrade to the sewer plant, it's unlikely that we're going to get an approval from the DEC because we discharge a certain amount of effluent into the Wallkill River. And also, like, the cost to make improvements to modernize the sewer plant, you know, that's gonna be expensive, that's gonna have a cost. But so, you know, we have flexibility to add housing to reach towards the state's pro-housing community goals. But we can also do it in a way that we have some checks and we have some boundaries and we have some bumpers. So it's done carefully and thoughtfully. And I think the other thing that I really want to emphasize is that we have a local village planning board as well as a town planning board, and we have volunteers who serve on these boards. So when there are projects that come before them, they take super hard look about like traffic and congestion impacts, and they hire traffic consultants to make sure X number of units involving Y number of cars, how will that impact the local congestion? And it's the same thing with our engineers. They're looking at, like, so you're gonna build an apartment complex, and then the consultants will say, you know, how much new demand on water services, how much new demand on the sewer system will this impact?
So of course, the town is also a pro-housing community, and we also have a town planning board, and we look at all these things very carefully as well. I think what we do not do is we do not approve of pilots for housing. We approve of pilots for bringing jobs to New Paltz. Pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes, and that's something that affects all of us, and it's something that is not appropriate for building market rate rentals. And market rate rentals are going to not provide the housing that many people need in New Paltz. We need affordable housing, and the 10% or 15% of the new bills doesn't begin to scrape the need. It does not meet the need that's there. So we need to be paying attention to that and being very judicious and making sure, yes, that our housing bill does not get ahead of our infrastructure, because that will be a big disaster. And I've never seen a traffic study yet that didn't say, oh no, we won't be the problem for traffic, it's the next one down that's gonna cause the problem. So those are, those traffic consultants know who pays their bills, right? So it's just one of those things that we do need housing here, but we need affordable housing. And I think we have one really good example of one, which is Harmony Hall, which is 100% affordable, but it's for seniors. And we need something like that for people of other age brackets as well. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, your rebuttal, or Mayor Rogers, your rebuttal.
So the Village of New Paltz is a pro-housing community. We have been for the last 2 years. The first year that the state offered the program, you basically had just to fill out a form and say, yeah, we're pro-housing, and they're like, okay, you are. Now you have to qualify. The town is not currently a pro-housing community. You actually have to have additional units coming online to meet very specific goals. You have to increase your housing stock by 1/3 of 1% annually. So I just wanted to clarify that fact.
Mr. Chris Gotto, your response.
So one of the things that happens out in the town that I want to look at and change, we need to look at our zoning, because the town zoning says 1 single-family residence per lot, and we need to be looking at other types of housing, other modes of housing. We do have something called a residential variable that's an overlay that allows for apartments, and we also have something called a planned unit development, which allows for residential and retail and other types of uses. And I think we also need to be looking at duplexes and townhomes and things like that we can put out in the town that take care of the demand for housing. So yes, it takes time, and what gets built right now is single-family homes, and you don't get that increase in numbers that you get when you build one apartment building.
Thank you both. Could you give your stance specifically on the New Paltz apartment project? Can you explain your opposition or support of this project? And that's Supervisor Gotto first.
Okay, sure. So the New Paltz apartment project is actually a dormitory type of housing. It's buildings that contain a number of bedrooms, each of which is an individual lock-off that's rented individually, and then there are shared common spaces for anyone who's in that building. So our thought is that this type of housing, because again, it only has about, I think it was projecting to have 612 of those bedrooms, and there would be about 15% would be affordable. That will be taken up quickly by the people who are on the waiting list for housing, if that's the type of housing they want. This housing could actually increase racial inequality in the housing in New Paltz. So this is a problem, and what we would rather see is a more standard type of housing and make it available to anyone and everyone. When you folks are ready to move off campus and not live in a dorm setting, you need to have that housing available. And also we could do with the planned unit development, have additional spaces there for businesses and whatever it is that you're spending your time now learning about that you want to use your career as a space for you to be able to do that in the community. So that's why right now, the way the project currently is, the town has said that it does not meet the overall interest of the whole community.
Mayor Rogers, your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a really important project. Adding housing stock makes a great deal of sense. Adding housing stock that's marketed to young professionals and college students makes a ton of sense in this community. This project was so thoroughly reviewed by our village planning board for 4 years. There was a seeker process. The town of New Paltz was involved as an involved agency. They chose not to participate at all. The town planning board voted in favor of the village planning board being lead agency for the review. I'm a big proponent of due process and rule of law. I don't understand how we can task volunteers and village staff who are paid for with taxpayer dollars and then at the 11th hour go ahead and pull the rug out from under them and undermine their work. If I'm elected supervisor, I would just agree to a settlement. You know, this is being reviewed by the appellate division because it's effectively a 1-to-1 tie. The village board voted in favor of annexation. The town board voted in opposition. And I would imagine that whoever gets elected as the rest of the council to the town board would also agree to a settlement, because the case is crystal clear. You can't not participate in a seeker review process and then create your own finding statement at the 11th hour and object to annexation. It's a complete waste of time and a losing battle, and I'm really dismayed. You know, I even reached out to council members on the town board before they took their annexation vote, and they wouldn't even talk to me.
Supervisor Gotto, your rebuttal.
Yes, all right. First of all, let's go back 4 years where there was a different set of people, a different town board, and whatever they thought was about this whole project is not clear. None of them are here now. But it was rather, the annexation part of this whole project was never addressed. Instead, they pushed ahead with the site plan review, with the beginning of the site plan review, which is the SECR, the State Environmental Review Act. And at that point, yes, the planning board at that time in the town, they agreed, they said, okay, if you, all right, no, wait, I'm sorry, I've got to talk about this. It's not a friggin' 11th hour thing. It is our right to have our own findings, and we did that. We reviewed that seeker and found it was flawed, and we presented that finding. We did not immediately make a decision that the whole thing was in the best overall interest of the town. We took our time, we worked hard, and we came out that it was not. And now the village is suing us. The village is suing us. And using taxpayers' money, we will have to defend it with all of the taxpayers' money to defend ourselves while they have the developer paying their bills. I just don't think that's right. There's something wrong there. I'm sorry.
Mayor Rogers, your rebuttal.
Sure. So annexation was 100% discussed in the environmental impact statement, and the obligation of the town board was to decide on whether or not to annex. The reason that the property was looking to be annexed into the village is because village law requires properties that would require municipal water and sewer to be annexed in. And this is also why I roll my eyes about this idea of like, well, let's do lip service about affordable housing. Let's do lip service about adding housing outside of the core of our community. How do you do that without water and sewer? I'm also a big proponent of Governor Patterson's 2012 law, where we do not take grant money and just create sprawl. What you have in New Paltz and what you have in nearly every community in this state is deferred infrastructure maintenance. And that's exactly why North and South Chestnut Street makes people nuts that we're doing the repair work right now. So the idea that we're gonna build new stuff that we then have to, continue to maintain in the future when communities like ours are doing a piss poor job of maintaining our current infrastructure because it's so wildly expensive. 1.3 miles from South Side to Sunset Ridge to replace the $4 million project. Where does that money come from?
Supervisor Gotto, you have the option to rebut.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever you're talking about is your own infrastructure. The village is required to provide municipal water and sewer to every resident in the village. That is part of your job. That is what your never raised taxes for is supposed to be paying for. I'm sorry, you shouldn't wait for grant money to do your basic job. I don't really understand that part of it. Yes, out in the town, there are people in the town who get village water and sewer. That's a law they passed on themselves at some point in time to say, oh, you have to be in the village to get that. If the pipes are there and you connect them, we pay for the water. We pay 150% of what the village people pay for that water. So they get a premium on it, and we still have to maintain our part of the infrastructure.
Mayor Rogers, your rebuttal.
Right, so the challenge that we have is that the town has all these individual water districts and they can't pay for themselves. If I were,
I'm sorry.
I mean, the supervisor sent me an email recently explaining how Water District 3, which is east of the Thruway, has $30,000 in debt, and it's been, it's been paid for by a loan from the town A fund. You know, the state comptroller's office would have a problem with that. So we're doing problematic, completely unsustainable things. You know, I would be a big proponent of rolling up all the town water districts, integrating them with the village district. You can't do that unless you have one community that's working together. There's only one water plant, there's only one sewer plant, there's only one conveyance system for water, there's only one conveyance system for sewer.
Do these look like one water system? No, these are individual water districts in the town. All this purple is one water district. They don't touch each other, they're not easy to run. And this is another one. This right here is the village, and this over here is another water district. That's what's happened out in the town. I just don't even begin to see how he thinks he can put these together, but you don't wait for grant money to do your basic maintenance. That's not a good way to run things.
Mayor Rogers?
A, they're all connected by pipes. B, have you done any capital projects to address inflow and infiltration in the town sewer districts? Not just studies, not just smoke tests, but actual work. We spend millions of dollars every year addressing New Paltz's I&I challenges. We're under a consent order from the DEC because we have raw sewage that gets discharged into our street, because we have super old sewer conveyance. And we're a model community for addressing that problem. Speak with the commissioner of the DEC.
So then
Okay, we're going to return to our standard
sorry.
setup of our debate. And we're going to move on to our question. Mayor Rogers, you are currently serving as mayor of New Paltz. Supervisor Gotto, you are currently town supervisor, but you have recently changed parties. Could you both please explain how your current political statuses will inform your role as town supervisor? And we're going to start with Mayor Rogers for this question.
Yeah, I mean, embracing progressive and democratic principles is what foundational. The idea that, you know, we would be discussing, you know, women's reproductive freedom or treating immigrants humanely, that's foundational. There's no discussion, conversation about whether or not those are options. You know, that's what MAGA Republicans discuss. You know, this is, you know, because it's foundational, because it's stuff that, you know, I've been a giant proponent of since I was in college, you know, being a supporter of LGBTQ rights, being, you know, identifying myself as a feminist when I was 19 years old. Like, this is foundational stuff. So I would never, ever accept the Republican nomination. I was offered to it by a dear friend who has since passed away when I was running for office a few years ago. He was like, in addition to the Dems, you want the Republican? I was like, no, gracias, I'm good. It's a non-starter for me.
Supervisor Gotto?
Okay, I would just like to say, first of all, that I am a registered Democrat, and I have been. And in New Paltz, town of New Paltz, we have a law for immigration defense. We also have passed resolutions supporting Dr. Maggie Carpenter. I live those principles every day. I lost the primary There are 6,500 registered Democrats in New Paltz. 1,064 of them chose to vote in the primary, and I lost by 82 votes. It was very close, and I didn't see a big turnout or mandate. That is less than 1% of the 11,000 registered voters in New Paltz. I felt that the difference in our approaches on some of the things that are basic local politics meant that there should be a choice here in New Paltz. I looked into getting on an independent line, and I was not able to do so in the time frame and with the resources I needed to make it happen. So then the county Republicans reached out to me, and they said, we don't have a candidate, we have an opening. Would you like it? And I said, that doesn't make sense. I'm a Democrat, what are you talking about? And I'm not changing my registration or my party or my philosophies or my principles. And they said, that's okay, we can put any town resident in that spot, regardless. And then I said, well, why would you want to do that? And they said, because we think New Paltz should have some choice. Right now, you would have less than 1% of the voters saying that all the rest of you have no choice. There's a single candidate. That's happened too often in New Paltz. It's happening right now with our town board. It happens with our school board. If you want to be able to say what happens locally, politics is local, our issues are local, what happens on the national scene, we are all worried about that and trying to deal with it. I've been at rallies, I've been at marches, I've been signing postcards and doing petitions. You know, it's a local issue.
Thank you.
Mayor Rogers, you have a 30-second rebuttal option.
I appreciate that you've been at rallies and you continue to be a registered Democrat, but I really struggle with the speech where you received the Republican nomination, and the objection to my candidacy was because we had a Black Lives Matter flag at Village Hall, and the individual who nominated you said that I'm anti-Semitic and racist, and you stood there and smiled and then just read a prepared speech and did not address that.
Well, I'm sorry, but he took me by surprise. I didn't know that was going to be part of it, and I absolutely understand you are not anti-Semitic or racist.
And Black Lives Matter.
Of course, every life matters.
Okay, moving on to our,
Moving on to our next question. I'm gonna please ask the audience to remain silent during the debate, and that you will have an option to speak to candidates informally after the debate.
Our final question of the evening, can you explain how you view the community in New Paltz, this close-knit community that is the town of New Paltz?
and that's gonna go to Supervisor Gotto.
Oh, okay.
Gotto.
Well, you know, it's an interesting place because New Paltz is vibrant and it's inclusive, it's diverse, and yet we still have silos and we still have some really big discrepancies. We have income discrepancies, we have food insecurity, and we have people who can, go to the most expensive restaurant in town and not blink an eye. So we have those issues just like the rest of the world has them, and I think we need to continue to be aware that we need to work all the time on not getting complacent, that we are diverse and that's a joy, and that we should celebrate it, and we should continue to reach out to each other and appreciate each other.
Mayor Rogers.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said about, we do have plenty of things to be proud of. This is a truly fantastic community for a variety of reasons. But I do think that, and we saw this very recently with the incident that occurred at Town Board Member Essie Lewis's house. I think what happens in New Paltz is that sometimes we pat ourselves on the back and we're like, we're progressive, we're woke, therefore we don't have to work hard. We do. We probably have to work harder. We probably have to take a closer look at our privilege, because we are a predominantly white community. And it was harrowing hearing from young people from this university describing experiences that they've had to endure in our town. it's embarrassing. And I don't think it's enough to simply say, oh, we're good, we're progressive. Like, sure we are, but implicit bias, systemic racism are real things. And I understand it because I took the college classes, but they are real things, and you can't give up doing that work.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to our final, more specific question. If in your role as potentially the town supervisor, how will you seek to preserve this sense of community and inclusion that we both want to support? And then we'll go to Mayor Rogers first.
I think this is a nice event. You know, I liked how Professor Scott was saying how, you know, you don't have too many opportunities to co-mingle the university students and the college students. I think, you know, that's one piece to you know, what we have as far as an advantage here in this community. Let's lean into that and continue to enjoy and appreciate that. But, you know, going back to, you know, my previous comment, I think we have an opportunity and a responsibility to work harder and not settle and think that we're good just because, you know, we're largely Democrat or we identify as progressives. Like, it's real work, and you know, just patting ourselves on the back is inadequate.
Supervisor Gotto?
Yeah, so it was really a wake-up call when this atrocious event happened, but what came out of it was, I think, positive and healing, because we had well over 100 people come to the town meeting right that same week, and we heard a lot from a lot of people about how much they cared about each other, but we also heard some rather shocking things. I mean, from one of your own faculty members who works with your incoming students, explaining that those folks can be walking down the street in New Paltz and have someone in a car passing by throw things at them. Or they could be in McDonald's sitting at a table and have people at another table making hooting monkey sounds at them. That's atrocious. That's not acceptable. And we shouldn't think that those things don't happen in New Paltz, that it just happens somewhere else in big cities or something like that. It does, and we all need to be working on it. So some of what's coming out of that are community workshops saying, how do we work together? How do we get a common vocabulary? And then how do we start to work on this? And from our standpoint, we have been following an activity that took place a couple of years ago that talked about undoing racism, and we're gonna have another workshop this year. And it needs to be not just for the town employees and the village employees, it needs to be for the school district employees, it needs to be for the campus folks too. And we need to find other tools besides that to make available to our community and to our employees, that whether it's an online thing, a one-day thing, you know, several days, whatever, we need to work on finding those tools and making them available throughout our community.
Thank you both. We're going to offer both of you a 3-minute closing remark at the end of our debate, and that would begin with Supervisor Gotto.
Okay, great. So we've talked about a lot of things here, and you can see that we're both Democrats. He's a smart guy, I'm a smart woman. We both are committed to this work that we're doing. We feel it's very important. I think it's important also that we recognize that this should not become a lifestyle, that there should be term limits for the supervisor and there should be salary limits for the supervisor, so that you get your work done in your 2 terms, you get your programs done, and then you step aside and let the next generation come along, next people, and it doesn't become a dynasty, and it doesn't become your main source of income, and it will color your decisions if you're thinking of it that way. So that's what I hope to do if I get a full term, which I haven't had yet, is to do some of these things that I've told you about a little bit, and also to make sure that I recognize that it will also needs to, the baton has to be passed in an appropriate way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Rogers?
Yeah, I totally disagree with the idea of lowering the supervisor's salary. I think it's really curious. It's like, Amanda, you ran for the Democratic nomination this spring, you spent, between $12,000 and $15,000 of your own money on that race. There's a giant barrier to entry when the people who are running for office have to, pay that type of entry fee to participate. I intentionally didn't raise any money this spring. I raised $3,700 this fall to just pay for a mailing and a website because, folks were pushing me to do that. I'm not going to raise more money than that. And I also feel like, this is not about me and you. This is about having an administrative position that various individuals could step into. The idea that you would lower the salary so that only retired, wealthier people could participate, I think is really problematic and the wrong direction for having a community represented by the broadest possibility of individuals.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I came